I'm about to start working on my first real project, and as I'm gearing up to get started, I found myself thinking back on the road that I took to get here. Let me show you how I went from not knowing anything about game development to working on my first commercial project. This is my 2-year game development journey. It was 2021. I had spent nearly 2 years going through a design program that had huge problems. During this time, I was struggling with a huge bout of imposter syndrome. It got so bad that I actually broke down in front of one of my mentors. I had gone into the program with so much enthusiasm and passion, and it kept getting stomped on by a support staff that didn't care, a curriculum that even our instructors thought was wrong, and evaluations from our teachers saying that we were clearly not ready to get jobs as designers. And I didn't know where to go. So I decided that I was going to learn how to code so I could have real world projects in my portfolio that I could build myself instead of trying to get a job with just concept projects. That's what I did. I started learning web development so I could get a design job. I went to a vocational high school where we learned the basics of web development, so I wasn't going in completely blind. Alongside web development, I decided to give game development a try just for fun. I wasn't expecting anything to come from it. So the first course I went through was a 2D course from Game Dev TV, and during this time, I was also trying to find a design job and learn web development. But as I was going through the course, it was fun. It took the aspects that I enjoyed about design and the aspects that I enjoyed about programming and married them together in such a new, refreshing way. I had just finished the first section of the course, and it was the first time I thought, I can make games and put them online. So I had a plan. I wanted to work on my first game and put it online to see what kind of traction it would get. So I did it. I started working on a text adventure game based off of the first section of the 2D course I was going through. The game was called Sister's Keeper, and it's a story set in the far future where you're trying to save your sister after she went missing on a mining expedition. You could explore 2 different worlds that would lead to vastly different stories, and every decision you made had ramifications later on. The 2D course didn't teach much beyond the basic functionality of making a text adventure, but I didn't just stop at what they were teaching. I started to add things in like voiceover. I added achievements to the game. I even started to build out a whole story with multiple endings and branching paths. And I got help from another writer to build the story out with me. It wasn't a shooter or action game, but this project was really starting to look great. I got a job interview for a design role at one of my dream companies. I went to the interview and I thought I did pretty well, and even my interviewer seemed to like me. They said they were impressed with my portfolio, but I ended up not getting the job. This might seem like bad news, but I actually felt reinvigorated. The fact that I got a job interview based solely on my design portfolio, even without real world projects, really gave me a boost in confidence. So I decided that I was going to pass on the project for now and focus on building out my portfolio more and start applying for jobs more seriously. I continued with the course, and I was really enjoying building on top of the course projects and not just stopping at what they were teaching. I think this really helped accelerate my learning because I was actively going out on my own and trying new things without guidance. So I took the Laser Defender game from the course and started to build on top of it with my own 2D assets, and I think it turned out pretty good for a course project. But as I was working on it, I had a vision. I could turn this game into a full game. This could potentially be my ticket into getting my first indie game success. So I started working on this new project called Laser Stream. I was still applying for jobs, but I knew this game would eventually be my ticket into breaking into the industry. I gave up on a week later because I couldn't figure out how to get the movement working. To be honest, I wasn't really interested in this game idea. I was just really excited to start working on another game project, and it kind of got away from me. At this point, I had just finished the 2D game course, and even though I couldn't figure out how to make a simple 2D movement system, I thought I was ready to jump into multiplayer. So I took another one of Game Dev TV's courses that taught multiplayer. I actually couldn't get footage of the multiplayer game because I don't have anybody to play with, but this is the level. Whoa, look at that. Imagine like tanks running around and stuff. Doesn't that look cool? After finishing this course, I reconnected with an old friend who was also getting into game development, and we decided to work on our first multiplayer project. We didn't have a solid name for the game, but the working title was Phobia Pals. It was meant to be a 2D horror game where you play as a mailman delivering quests to heroes. You were going to be maneuvering yourself through this dangerous world with limited movement abilities, trying not to die while delivering these quests. We started talking about game design and I started building out some multiplayer features, but we ended up dropping the project sort of out of nowhere. But I think it was for the better. I wasn't really ready to jump into multiplayer even after I finished the course. So I started focusing more on building out my design portfolio. And this was actually when I joined my first game jam. You might be thinking, what?
Big leap. I thought you were going to focus on design, and now you're joining a game jam?
Yeah, the stars aligned with this game jam. I was in a design Discord server, and out of nowhere, this design server that focused just on design decided they were going to run their own game jam. But I didn't join as a programmer, I joined as a designer. This was my first experience working with a team, and thankfully I wasn't the lead. However, I did have a design partner that sort of looked at me for guidance because I had some game development experience compared to her zero. But she was a great designer. I really enjoyed working with her, and our project ended up with an award. The game was a 2.5D scavenger hunt, and it's actually available to play right now on my itch page. Looking back on it, the process of working with the team was really great, but I don't think the end product was the best. And personally, I think the only reason why we ended up winning was because there were 5 winners and only 14 submissions. But hey, a win is a win. I still count it. I am technically an award-winning designer. You can't take that away from me. Off of the back of that victory, I started working on more projects for my design portfolio, and one of my friends introduced me to a free coding bootcamp that was just completely free. I thought it would be a great opportunity to learn more web development with a group of students, and the bootcamp had connections with Verizon, so I could potentially end up getting a job at the end of the program. And during this time, Game Dev TV hosted their own game jam and were offering a free course to everyone that submitted a project. This was another moment where the stars aligned. I literally joined a class with a group of students that were hungry to learn programming, and a few of them enjoyed gaming as well. I asked if people were interested, and I did form a little group, but people eventually started to fall off the project just because we were still going through the web development bootcamp and people had jobs. But I did have one partner on the project at the end, and she did the art for our submission, Soul Collector. Soul Collector is a 2D platformer where you play as a little ghost running around picking up lost souls to save them from eternal torment. It ended up being a 2D collectible game, and that project is also available to play right now on my itch page as well. So after the jam ended, off of the back of the positive feedback we got, I said, this is it. I had forgotten about the text adventure. I had quit the 2D side-scrolling bullet hell. I gave up on the 2D horror platformer, but not this time. This game is going to launch me into indie game success. And I started working on the project after the jam ended. I added some much needed improvements, better sound effects, particle effects, speed running timer, improved dialogue system and camera system. Then one day, I just couldn't move. I was so bewildered. I tried to figure out what the problem was, but the only thing that I added was a speed timer, and that didn't interact with the movement system at all. To this day, I don't know what the problem was. I did update the Unity version to a newer version later on, and that completely fixed it. I ended up giving up on the project because of this one bug. This is literally the only time I have ever given up on something because of a bug, and it's one of my greatest shames in my game development journey. I'm sorry, Soul Collector, you deserve better. Rest in peace. I finished the coding bootcamp and I started to dive really deep into programming because I started to get a lot of interview opportunities at really big notable companies. Google, Dropbox, Airbnb. I got pretty far into the interview process at some of the companies, like really far, and during this time I learned so much about programming. I learned about algorithms, big O notation, and different libraries. You call me SpongeBob because I was soaking in so much knowledge about coding. I got far, but I didn't get all the way. But it felt like a huge confidence boost that I was able to compete with other people that had gone through college learning computer science. But it did feel like I was sort of running up against a wall. I have been trying for so long to break into tech, first with design, then with programming, and I haven't had any success. Throughout this time, I was supporting myself just hopping around from freelance job to freelance job doing video editing, but I definitely couldn't have gotten this far without the support of my brother and mother. Getting close to those high-paying tech jobs was a confidence boost for sure, but it was also really emotionally draining. My mother helped me through the rejections. My brother had always been really supportive with my game development projects as well, and I talked to him about maybe taking this game development thing seriously. This whole time I had been doing it more for fun and not really seeing it as a viable option. I got excited at points about making games, but even then in the back of my mind, I still felt like it wasn't something that I could actually do. After talking with my brother, he gave me the support and push to really try to get this game development dream off the ground. Over the past few months, that's what I've been doing. I've been learning about the business of game development. I have been studying more about programming in Unity and using the engine. I took CodeMonkey's turn-based game course and started to join more game jams to implement the things that I've been learning. I have 2 videos going more in depth about those projects, and now I feel like I'm at a point where I definitely don't know everything about game development, but I feel like I know enough to start working on my first commercial project and learn along the way. So, my first commercial project is going to be dedicated to my brother for helping support me throughout this journey. The working title for my first game is Tower Quest. If you're interested in seeing the development of that game, hit the subscribe button. Thank you for watching. I'm excited to get started.